Welcome back, explorers. I'm David, that's Wesley, and this is the Trailcast.
The show that gets so far off track, you'll have to stick around to see just where we end up. But David, random question, completely unrelated to anything that we're going to talk about today. Have you watched The Bad Batch? The 3 episodes, the premiere and all came out uh, Wednesday, yesterday as of recording this. And I was just wondering if you'd watched it, because I watched it, but I wasn't sure if you did.
Yeah, I watched it. You know, we had a plan for this episode, but why don't we just talk about that?
Fair enough. Fair enough. I was like really intrigued with it and had a lot to say about it. So I was hoping that you were actually going to say that because I didn't prep for our original plan for this episode. I completely forgot.
I even forgot what it was, what we were originally supposed to be talking about. So, yeah, let's talk about Bad Batch.
All right. All right. So I don't know. What were your thoughts when watching through the Bad Batch this week? Yeah. What were your thoughts with it? Overview.
Again, they hinted at so much and then didn't give us the satisfaction of actually seeing what.
I mean, it's a 3 episode premiere. How many?
True.
How many? How many episodes are there? Is it 15 or 18?
Probably 13 to probably
They
13 to 15.
had they had a list of all the names. I just didn't remember. Oh, here I got it
I'm
here.
not 100% sure how many there are going to be, but like I said, if I had to
I'll look it
guess,
up.
I think it's like 13 to 18.
Mm, do they not have a list? Let's see. Episodes. Okay. Will it only show me the first four? They had a whole entire list of them.
Yeah.
Um, with all the
Just look at
names and everything.
just Google how many episodes there are going to be.
Well, see, that's what I was trying to do, but um, I will say, and I've looked at some comments from different things, and I've watched through a couple like breakdowns of the. I watched Star Wars Theory and New Rockstars breakdown of the
Hmm.
first three ones, and I was reading through some of the comments, and what I saw a lot was like, you know, I saw one comment. It was like Dave Filoni's not messing around with this. Like he came out swinging with this series, which I would agree. I think all 3 episodes are really good, and for the Bad Batch, like okay, so season one of the Bad Batch was okay and good enough. Very similar, like basically just anything else you would think of within the Clone Wars, right?
Hmm.
I was telling Sarah, I was like, Bad Batch is obviously basically just Clone Wars 8,
Well,
9, and 10. But it wasn't anything extravagant or really that grand.
mhm.
It was just more Star Wars. And it was kind of cool because in the first season, you got to see a little bit more of the aftermath of um Order 66 and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it was cool, but it was kind of bland. Same with episode or season 2, it like got a little bit better. Especially, I do like the way season 2 ended, but a lot of season 2 was very bland, a lot of filler episodes. Like, I didn't get through season 2 as that quickly because I started watching it when it first started coming out, and then I slowly forgot about it because there were just a bunch of filler episodes that I wasn't really interested in watching. But like this first three, right off the bat, and obviously it's just the first three. But first three right off the bat, I was like, "Hey, these are all pretty good." And Star Wars Theory was talking about it, and he kind of said that like episode two is a little bit of a filler episode because like it really was. It just had like more of a point to it. And if we get filler episodes like that this season, which I feel like you're gonna have to do to get all the points in that you want for this series, because they have a lot of questions to answer. And obviously they're really gonna be focusing on Omega in this series. And there's a lot of things to answer and talk about with her character. So like I feel like this season is going to be it's gonna probably be the best that they've done I feel like there's gonna be very few filler episodes because there's so much story to get through, and, you know, they gotta find out where we leave the Bad Batch at the end of this, you know?
Mhm.
There's a lot more story to tell. I don't think that they're making a Bad Batch season 4, but, maybe they are, maybe they're not. Maybe they're making a new show like they did with the Clone Wars where they spin it off, you know, maybe do something with, like, Rex and Ahsoka. I don't know. Fulcrum? I don't know. But anyways, I still have to look up how many episodes there.
Yeah. So episode 1, episode 3 are really where we got the plot, or at least of the season. Yes, episode 2 was kind of a filler episode, but I will say it did uh it did better than the filler episodes from season 2 because I felt like there was a lot of action in it. I actually felt
Mhm.
like engaged with it.
Well, a lot with it too was like, so in episode 1 and 3, both, like, the whole of the whole of the episode, like, there was details in every, quote, unquote, "every frame" of the episode in episode 1 and episodes 3. Whereas in episode 2, their end goal, which is to find Omega, and they are picking up clues for that end goal, is important, but the episode in of itself isn't that important. Like, okay,
Mm,
what do? They go to some random planet that is on track for them to pick up more clues to find Omega, and by the end of the episode, they have another lead, but they meet some clone cadets. That's in the grand scheme of things, that's not very important. And they go and they fight some monster that
see,
was put there because of experiments. Those aren't like important things per se,
mm,
but you know, it's better than some random mission that Sid's sending them on.
yeah. See, I was thinking originally when I was watching that episode, I was thinking like the young clones might like turn out to be something like they might join the crew or whatever. I don't know, but
Yeah,
yeah, it was still might happen, but kind of brush that aside at the end of the episode.
yeah. Um, Before we get too far, 15 episodes, um, and it's gonna run from February 21st until May 1st.
So the finale is going to be
So,
the week of May the 4th.
yep. Which some people are speculating that that might mean that there might be a big reveal being that it's that week. So I am curious to see how that all goes because obviously, so let's go ahead and dive on into some of the big things that are supposed to be tackled within Bad Batch. Obviously, we're talking a lot about the cloning that Palpatine is
Hmm.
trying to do, and a big thing within this is that Omega, her blood meshes well with Palpatine's blood. Her blood will work with the midichlorian count, and yada yada yada. Okay, so she's important. Um, but this is all leading to Rise of Skywalker. Whether we
Hmm.
like it or not, this is all leading to the sequels. This is all leading to Palpatine coming back in the sequels, and that this is where it's going. And there's a lot of things that have been hinted at in Mandalorian with all the stuff that they're trying to do with Grogu, and in this that they've been hinting at for a while that leads toward that. So we have a long, long stint of time for a bunch of things to go wrong because they have to. There's no way that by the end of this season here, like they have to foil Palpatine's plans by the end of the season so that he has to go to some other plan because, you know, otherwise, how do we get to Rise of Skywalker, right? Like it
Hmm.
seems like everything should work out right for Palpatine. but they have to throw so many wrenches into the plan between now and then for it to actually make sense. I I don't I'm intrigued, but I also wish that that wasn't the end result. Um, a lot of people have talked about, them going the route of young Palpatine. And I believe we've talked about this before, but you know how apparently I heard Matt Smith at one point auditioned for Rise of Skywalker, and his original role was going to be young Palpatine,
Mm.
which I would have loved to see whether it was him or not. I love Matt Smith as an actor. He's an amazing actor. Um, and would have loved to see him in a role like that and see him in Star Wars. That didn't end up happening. But like, think of how cool it'd be if we did end up seeing a young Palpatine in Rise of Skywalker, where Rey didn't just snap her fingers and Palpatine dusted himself. I don't know. Um, Imagine an actual duel between a
And
Palpatine that was
okay, okay.
semi-powerful, and if they wrote a Rey that's pretty powerful, and then you have that battle going on there, and then Palpatine's plan makes sense up until this whole entire point because he's a genius
And
and
okay,
wouldn't
okay.
have had all these.
And
Yeah.
and imagine that twist too. Don't like because it was so dumb. I've said this before. I'll say it again 1,000 times. But it's so dumb that they revealed the Palpatine twist in the trailer for the Rise of Skywalker. Okay, so just just
Which
just
trailer
picture
was that? Was that the first trailer?
yeah, because it had Palpatine's laugh at the end.
Okay, I was thinking that I didn't remember which trailer it was. I remember it being in the trailer. I just didn't remember
Mm,
if it was like one of the later trailers or if it was like the first one. Either way, it's stupid. That's the
okay,
biggest reveal of
okay,
the whole entire movie.
but
But
just picture this. So you could even have the first scene very similar. Like Kylo goes to Exegol and finds this
mhm.
like mysterious Sith Lord hiding in the shadows, and it's played, Matt Smith or whoever, and just have it as like a mysterious Sith Lord. And
Yeah.
then when it comes to the final fight scene, reveal that he's a clone of Palpatine, that he is Palpatine. That would be
You know
amazing.
what they could have done is that clone his name starts with an S. It's like Darth Simeon. I don't know. Anyways, the clone not a clone guy, but it's a guy from the Clone Wars who ends up turning to the dark side. I think he ends up getting cloned, yada yada yada. He I really gotta look this up because I gotta figure out who this is. But he fights Luke. Luke ends up killing him, I think, or maybe he's around after Luke. I don't remember. But have him. You can hint at this other guy. Let's see. Sith Lord.
Here we are talking about the Rise of Skywalker when that's what we're talking about next week. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Let's
um,
see. Okay. You
but we'll
you
still
keep
stick on
talking.
tangent
I gotta.
for we can still stay for a while. Like it
Well,
was real.
it makes sense because it fits. It's just it's what
Yeah, it
all this
does.
is leading up to.
Yeah, it does. But yeah, like I said, it would have been so much cooler to see like to see like a younger Palpatine clone as the main antagonist, and not reveal that it's a clone of Palpatine until the end.
Yeah, and I mean, like, here's the thing too. Is like we are making our way to. Okay, this has been talked about. Uh, yeah. What do you think Palpatine was looking at in the vault lab temple area, like whatever that thing was? What do you think he was looking at?
See, I'm not sure because it kind of like the way it's portrayed kind of like wants you to think it's a clone of Palpatine or a or like Snoke or something, but it's too
Hmm.
early for the well, okay. It's too early for Snoke. It could be a clone of Palpatine, but the whole point of like this, and then talking about like the Mandalorian and stuff is, it's very hard, not impossible, to clone a force sensitive being and have the clone retain the metachlorian count of the cloner. So it could
Yeah,
be a clone of Palpatine, but they wouldn't have the force sensitive abilities.
which makes me wonder, obviously, when you get to the point where, Palpatine did have a clone of himself who either wasn't force sensitive or wasn't good enough, who ran away, got married, and had a kid, AKA Rey, then, we're kind of already in line for that because when the 2 scientists, what's I should know at least um, Kim and Owen's name, but what are their names?
Uh,
Uh,
I just completely blanked on them. I had what
David,
up,
you're supposed to be the smart one here.
Nalase and
And I would say, well, anyways, while you're figuring that out,
I don't
um,
remember the other scientist's name, but I know Nalase is the
while you're
canon.
yeah, now I say, and then we're coming out of the lab. She's like, "Hey, that was a success because everything merged right." And he was like, "No, the M count needs to maintain or be higher." So obviously they're able to be making the clones, but they're not able to get them with a midichlorian count or
Mhm,
one high enough, I guess, to support Palpatine's force abilities.
mhm.
So it seems like they're already at that point where it's like, all right, hey, we have this here, all lined up for Rey. Now, that does make some people speculate that maybe Omega is Rey's mother. I do wonder if they're trying to tie in, whether it's Omega or someone else, if they're going to try and tie in some things like that into this series. I kind of hope not because I don't know. I don't know if I really want it tied in that much.
I mean, the timeline would fit, but still, that's. We also don't know. They never like explicitly said that Omega is from the DNA from Jango Fett. They just say she's a clone.
Yeah. Well, another thing too is so her blood meshes with Palpatine's and mixes with Palpatine's. People are automatically saying that she's force sensitive. Does that mean she's force sensitive, or does that mean that she's just like a candidate? Like, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how the biology actually works with it all. But would she necessarily have to be force sensitive? Even to a small degree for that to work. And if she is, how is she as a clone force sensitive? Like, I don't know if we know enough about cloning in Star Wars for to really come to that conclusion.
And again, we don't really know that much about Omega to begin with, so
Yeah. So
I don't know.
who is who is she a clone of? Is she a clone of Jango Fett? If she's a clone of Jango Fett, how is she force sensitive? If she's not necessarily force sensitive, how is she any different than any of the other clones? Because in all honesty, genetically, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the clone troopers are about as genetically close as you can get, if not identical.
I mean, we see like like with the Bad Batch, we see what happens with like mutated clones, but that's not the norm. Most clones are
Yeah.
like identical copies of Jango Fett.
Yeah. So I do wonder like stuff like that and what exactly uh I'm still lost as to this Sith Lord that I'm looking for.
Mm. Now, one thing that I do want to kind of ask
That was
you,
not a full sentence, but,
well,
anyways.
whatever, it's fine. But one thing I do kind of want to ask you, see your opinion. So they don't mention, they don't talk about it in the sequels. Again, they hint at it. They don't actually come out right out and say it. But I think it's commonly accepted that Snoke was a clone of Palpatine.
Mhm.
So
I think
was
they show
Snoke,
it.
well, because they show like the messed up Snokes or what, or the like dead Snokes in the tank or whatever, like a bunch,
Yeah.
in the Rise of Skywalker. But so was Snoke the first Force sensitive clone of Palpatine, but was just like physically deformed?
Hmm. Well, see, I've also seen it said it's like, alright, the time span between and, like, you gotta think about it too, like, when did Palpatine start thinking about his death, right? When did he start thinking, "I need to make this clone so that I don't ever die?" Was it when the Empire first was formed? Because this is right now in the Bad Batch, this is pretty early on within,
Mm.
the Empire being around. So, like, was it
This is
how
still
early on? Like,
50
how
years.
long.
This is 50 years before the Rise of Skywalker. So,
Yeah. So, so we have at least a 50-year gap that he's been working on this plan, you know?
well, I
And
mean, 20 because he dies at the end of the Galactic Civil War, but still, yeah.
yada, yada, yada. We have 50 years for him to have worked on this plan, right?
Hmm.
And how long before that had he been thinking about it? So, was Snoke and what he got within Snoke his original plan? I mean, even if you take just the 20 years, it really doesn't make much sense why he wouldn't have been successful. What was he doing between, um what was he doing during the original trilogy, right? He had a couple of years throughout there, and you don't really see him until, Return of the Jedi. So he has at least a couple years there that he could have been off dealing with all these things. His scientists aren't really the main focal point of a lot of the. He could have had some secret underground facility working on these things, which obviously he does and did. But it's like one of those things where you really got to, because they're backtracking, because they're trying to tie in the sequel trilogy and all these things, you really have to either make Palpatine look like an idiot or really, really, really explain how he was unable in a 50-year time to not get anything better than Snoke. And then the body that he appeared in Rise of Skywalker. Like,
Hmm.
you have to really, really explain that because Palpatine is a genius. Like, everything in the Star Wars tells you that. The only reason he lost is because of a tiny little slip up. He was way too focused on Skywalker and he wasn't paying attention to the other Skywalker and he slipped up. All right.
Mm.
So, one tiny mistake, which obviously was a huge mistake, but one tiny mistake uh cost him everything. But up until that point, he had essentially been flawless. So you really got to explain how he wasn't able to, with all the resources in the Empire, as it was said in this episode, he had the science for this experiment and all, had all the resources in the Empire. If you're pouring that much into it, and if it's really that important, one, you're not going to forget about it. Like it seemed, obviously, I know the original trilogy was way before this was ever thought up, but it's way too important for you to have just forgotten about it in the original trilogy. And two, well, how would you not do it in at least the 20-year span and even then some with other people experimenting on stuff like that? You know?
Mm. Yeah, I don't. I think Dave Filoni's got a plan to try to, explain this because, you know, he might not make Star Wars, but he fixes Star Wars. um, but yeah, I don't. We talked about this with the whole when we about Ahsoka and when we about the Mandalorian stuff before. Like all roads lead to the sequel trilogy.
Mhm.
It, yeah, I don't really know on that.
It is it's an annoying thing that all roads lead to the sequel trilogy because of how bad they are and just like when you're trying to write a story of some with some logic behind it, right? And that's the biggest thing that you and I talk about. Like, sure, we have people who come at us and are like, "Hey, stop overanalyzing it." It's like, well, one, we're just having fun with this, you know, but don't get on us for overanalyzing a fictional story when, you know, like that's the point. Like it has to have some kind of logic. Like I understand it's fictional. I understand within our real world logic it doesn't make sense. We're not basing it off of that. We're basing off of its in-world logic, and within that, it doesn't make sense. And the when you're trying to merge this story over here, as we've been raving all over, not raving, ranting about all everything in the sequel trilogy for the past couple of months, and we'll continue to do starting next week. Uh, and we're just going on and on and on about everything that just doesn't make sense. It's hard to take that story and fit it into everything else while still trying to make a story that makes sense.
Mhm.
You're like trying to you're trying to level something out with something that's not level, you know? So I do wonder how Dave Filoni is going to end up correcting some of these things to make it even make a little bit of sense.
'Cause, like, okay, I think too, like a lot of the stuff that he, I'll use air quotes here, fixed, like with the or with the prequels,
Yeah.
wasn't really that major of stuff. I mean, it was basically just giving more character development to Anakin and Obi-Wan, giving Anakin's fall to the dark side more time to to grow and progress. And I think the biggest thing, well, first thing I thought of was the inhibitor chips, explaining why the clones just suddenly just snapped.
Yeah.
But again, not really major things. And really, the only reason why the inhibitor chip thing, why the clones just turning on the Jedi was a problem to begin with, was because Dave Filoni had established that there were bonds between Jedi and their clones. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
he kind of created the problem that he fixed with that. But again, not really major problems.
Well, I also think that you know, it makes much more sense within uh the Star Wars lore. Like even if they didn't necessarily have bonds, it makes more sense for them to have an inhibitor chip because if you don't have the chips, then what? Do they just know they're gonna betray the Jedi? And if so, how do with all these troopers, how do you keep that a secret? You know, like the Jedi would have sensed
Mhm.
something would be up. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not that big of a problem. Um, but it is, and the thing too is like we can point out a lot of problems within the prequels but the problems within the prequels are less about the story of it and more about the acting or, you know, the that's about it. The acting or the
Dialogue.
writing of dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because the and that goes back to it being George Lucas. Like he might not have been able to write dialogue, but he understood. I mean, of course, he understood it. He came up with the universe, but he understood
Yeah.
the universe and everything made sense within the established Star Wars logic.
Mhm. Yeah. I am gonna be so annoyed when I am unable to find out who this guy is. I have looked up a ton of different things, and I still can't figure out who this guy is.
You're still looking up that Sith you're talking about, or the
Yep. So it's a guy who survived the Order 66, went into, like, some kind of exile, and then, like, but throughout the period, like, he went into exile or whatever, maybe he went to the Unknown Reaches, I don't remember which one it is, but he comes out after the fall of the Empire and probably after, Heir to the Empire and all that stuff, and then he starts wreaking havoc on the galaxy as he's, like, turned to the dark side and, like, stuff like that. I just can't think of who this guy is.
is it like after? So I'm assuming it's like after Thrawn, but before the Yuzhong Vong.
It might be, yeah, it's somewhere in that time frame, um,
Okay.
or he may not even be, like, that big of a threat. I don't remember, but he is out there around that time. I don't know.
I was about to go off on a tangent again about how the Yuzhong Vong arc would have or story would have made a much better sequel like arc than what we got. But I've already gone on that rant. I'll save that for another time. um,
Yeah, well, we can maybe dedicate a episode so you can rant some more.
we'll,
I
we'll we'll
don't
we'll
know.
do another one. We'll do another one of our Wikipedia video or podcasts on the Yuzhong Vong. That's a good idea.
There we go. So I guess to get back to Bad Batch, um, let's see. Ooh, so there was one thing that I saw, and I want to know what your thoughts on it are. So I saw a post and it said something about, do you think that Crosshair knows that Echo is dead? Omega and Crosshair have talked a little bit. Do you think that that's come up? Like, yes, that's a very important thing, but do you think Omega has mentioned it to him, being that maybe it's not the best time or place, and she's a little more concerned about them getting out? Also, would you be okay with him finding out that off screen and not seeing the motion or whatever of it on screen?
I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, you're right. Unless they did it off screen, Crosshair doesn't know.
Yeah. But do you think that, do you think he knows because Omega's
I don't know. I would kind of like to see that have a little more of an emotional moment
I
in.
saw one I saw one thing that was like talking about it and said you know, one of those moments where uh like they're starting out on a mission or they're in a mission and Crosshair looks over to the pilot's chair and it's just like that bit of a moment just knowing that Tech isn't there anymore and
Mhm.
like the sadness. Um, Obviously we did get a mention of him Uh, but Crosshair is the kind of character that, you know, Omega mentioned that that Tech made her memorize all the plans. So obviously she knew, what was it, Plan 72 or whatever. Um, so the way that he said it doesn't really give you much hint. Like he said, of course he would. It didn't really come across as a in memory kind of a. Of course he was that kind of guy.
Hmm.
So I'm curious to see how they deal with that because Omega and Crosshair have escaped now. So going into episode 4, we'll probably be seeing a reunion sometime soon. Um, so I am curious to see how that all goes. Um, I'm also curious to see, um, and this obviously goes into what the end of the series is gonna show, but I'm also curious to see. So at the beginning of this episode 2, when we first see the Bad Batch again, um, it is Wrecker and Hunter because Echoes died. Um,
I
and
mean, Tech.
yes, that's why I couldn't remember the other guy's name. Tech died, and Echo is off with Rex
Mm.
doing helping out clones. So it's just the two of them now. Barring nobody dies, Crosshair is going to be back with them. But I'm also curious to see who is left within the Bad Batch by the end of the series and what they plan on doing. You
Hmm.
know, like obviously I understand they talk to the cadets about it, going to uh Talos, right? Is that the name of the planet or place?
Think so.
Think I don't know. Anyways, the planet, from season 2.
Hmm. See, okay,
uh
but it's kind of an interesting thing with this too is the way Bad Batch is. Like, it's got some moments that get pretty dark. Um,
yes.
so I could see the series ending with several members of the crew dying, or I could just easily
Hmm.
see them as all going to the island and just pretty much retiring.
Yeah. And so the thing is, like, which route are they going to take? Which obviously will be what we will see as time goes on. But final question that I can think of currently. The guard, not the guard, but I'm sure you've seen stuff about it. The dark cloak, not dark cloaked, but the character that we see briefly wearing all black, like a clone trooper esque style uniform or whatever that we see briefly for a minute. You know who I'm talking about? I
Yep.
think it's in episode 3. What are your thoughts on that character?
I'm not sure. I'll have to watch more. I'm not sure. I'm not entirely
Now,
sure. I know there's probably
yeah,
tons of theories about who it is, but
yeah. Well, I think a lot the biggest theory is that people are just saying it's probably just another clone, like a special forces S clone, which we'll probably see more of him going into the rest of the series because obviously the Empire now wants Omega, because she's very important to Emperor's plan. So we'll probably see more of them. Who knows? Maybe it ends up being Asajj Ventress. I don't think it had the slim enough body for it to be a female or to be her. But maybe I just didn't watch it close enough. Uh, but anyways, so I saw one thing that said something about, oh, maybe it's Tech. Like maybe they found Tech and they got, like, maybe he wasn't completely dead. Yada yada yada. Well, one, that doesn't make sense because while we maybe never saw the body, Bad Batch definitely did, unless you can correct me on my memory, but they have his goggles, which would mean they would have had to retrieve those.
mm,
So um Hunter was looking at
No,
his goggles there. Did they
no.
have them?
Remember the it was at the end of season two. The Imperial guy had the goggles, so the
That still
Empire
means that.
got so the Empire got to Tech's body first.
Hmm. Well, then I do wonder. Then maybe there will be something with Tech down the line. I hope they don't really mess up the fact that he's dead, because it was sad, but it was a sad and touching moment that you don't need to mess with.
And that's one thing that, yeah, that's one thing that they don't need to do. Star Wars hasn't been. There are examples of it for sure, but Star Wars hasn't been bad about killing off characters and then keep bringing them back.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, there are examples of it. Don't get me wrong, but Star Wars hasn't been bad about that. They don't need to make. They don't need to
I don't need.
get bad at that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. I'm just not seeing anything. I might just not. It just may not be who I'm thinking.
You just
Maybe
made
I
up a
just made
character in your
something up.
mind. Yeah.
I might just be drawing people together, like a bunch of different people that I don't know, but I don't know. I might just be crazy. I mean, well,
I
obviously,
do.
but
Well, what I was thinking of with the like metachlorian count thing with like cloning, I was thinking of like Force Unleashed 2, like Starkiller.
yeah, even go that route. Hey, you know how? Here, what if they made Starkiller, but instead of being a clone of Vader, it's a clone of Palpatine?
Well, Starkiller wasn't a clone of Vader, but the Starkiller in Force Unleashed 2 was a clone of the original Starkiller.
Okay, okay, okay. I knew there's a clone in there somewhere. I didn't play through the game, so wait, where did Starkiller come from then?
He was the son of a Jedi. That
Okay.
so this Jedi was hiding on Kashyyyk, and Vader hunted him down, killed him, and then found his son Starkiller. Raised him to be a Sith assassin, pretty much.
Um, this is semi-random, but it ties in with me not knowing that. Uh, I was telling Sarah earlier, I was like, comments on the shorts are always one of two things. Either we're nerds or we're casuals. One of the two. It's never in between. We are either way too into this, or we don't know enough about it. And I was just like, I would say I know a good bit about Star Wars, but I don't know everything. And obviously, I can't remember who this character it is, so I can't remember everything either. But I have not played through the Force Unleashed games. I did not have the right consoles at the time when that was popular, and I've never gotten to it since. So I need to play through them. I know that they're good.
Force Unleashed actually was on Wii.
Didn't know that.
Eh,
If I wouldn't have been that great on there either.
probably not, because that was, I think it was a different version of Force Unleashed that
I had
was
Force
made
Unleashed for the
specifically for Wii.
DS, but it wouldn't follow the same storyline. So, those are always weird.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but then let's talk about that. Force Unleashed, or a version of Starkiller, bring Sam Witwer in and make it a clone of Palpatine. Then you can really explain why it's so powerful. If you can get the cloning down. And then you can explain why his experiments, and I mean, you could say, hey, why didn't they just do that again? But you could probably explain pretty easily why they wouldn't be able to do it again. Like maybe they couldn't find another viable candidate. This, that. What's hand on forehead for?
You could do that to actually explain. I don't know how I would feel about this, but it would explain better. But if they did that, brought like just did that route with Starkiller and had Rey have been Starkiller's daughter. and that might explain Rey's like
Why she's
inexplicable force abilities.
You could even have it where maybe he trained her a little bit before he dropped her off on Jakku.
Oh my gosh, that like that. I don't know how I feel about it, but that would explain it better.
I think a lot of things would explain it better,
Okay, okay.
but we're not
Here's what I
gonna
say.
get.
I don't know how I actually feel about that theory. Even though I came up with it, I don't know how I actually feel about it. But I feel better about it than what we already know about from the sequels.
Yeah, and you'll probably like that a lot better than what we're gonna end up getting.
Oh yeah, for
So
sure, for sure.
yeah. Now I know a lot of Star Wars projects get talked about and then canceled, but and obviously we don't have any idea where this is gonna end. Uh, what's gonna happen between now and then? But is there any talks of a what's gonna happen after Bad Batch? Like, is this it? Is this the series finale? And if so, you know, is this all that we know until Rebels?
Yeah, I don't know because well, this is supposed to. What didn't one of the trailers say this was the last season of Bad Batch?
Mhm. I'm pretty sure I remember seeing something or hearing something about this being it for Bad Batch. Like this is it for Bad Batch. Which I don't feel like that's a bad thing. I'm just curious because that still leaves a massive gap between um this and uh Rebels.
Mm-hmm. And yeah,
Which I mean,
I don't know. But you did mention something earlier, like maybe doing like a Fulcrum show. Or something. Well, it would be too. I think it'd
yeah,
probably be too early for that, unless they bridged it further up towards Rebels. But that would be kind of interesting. Do more like a I don't know. So this is probably. I'm just gonna assume each season of Rebels is a year, or not Rebels. Each season
mhm,
of Bad Batch is a year. So right now we're uh 3 years after Order 66.
okay. If we go by that lot, yeah.
Rebel starts 15 years after Order 66. So there's about a 10-year gap in there, which, if I'm remembering right, I think Fallen Order takes place like 10 to 15 years after. And
About 10 years.
about 10 years. Kenobi takes place about 10 years after. So we do have things in that gap area.
Yeah.
And Solo, too, takes place somewhere in there, too.
Yeah, but Solo has less of an effect on the galaxy. I'm more curious to see what Palpatine is doing in between that time,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
why Palpatine
Which
cloned Starkiller.
which it is cool that we got to see Palpatine in episode 3 because
Mhm.
correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time we actually seen Palpatine in. I know in the hologram the season 1, but I think the first time we've seen Palpatine in Bad Batch.
It's been a while since I've watched the rest of Bad Batch, but I don't really
Actually,
remember him.
I think there were a couple scenes in season 1, season 2 that were in the Senate, and he was there. But other than that, you know,
Yeah. Um. So from the trailers, obviously, we have a lot of people coming after Omega in Bad Batch. There's a bunch of bounty hunters that we'll probably end up seeing. I think Cad Bane might have been in the trailer, right? Um, we'll probably see a bunch of other really well known bounty hunters. Obviously, Asajj Ventress is in this, which I'm curious to see because they said, what was that comic or storyline, whatever it was, where she dies? They're not touching that, from what I heard. So I'm curious to see how she's alive
Oh, you're talking
in
about
here. I am. Let's see
the
what name
Quinlan
it is.
Voss. Yeah,
Yeah. I don't. Do you remember the name?
I don't remember the name of it, but I know it's the story arc with her and Quinlan Voss.
All that's coming to mind is Dark Disciple, and that's not right. But
But I thought that was supposed to take place during like Order 66 time, so I don't know.
well, yeah. So that's the thing at this point in time, if that is still canon, she's not alive. She's
Hmm.
been fried. Um, so I'm curious to see how they deal with that, especially with the fact that they said, or I've heard at least, that apparently that's not supposed to be poached. That's still canon. So I'm curious to see how that all goes. Um, but anyways, so we'll have characters like that. Do you think we'll see Vader in this? If the full might of the Empire is after Omega because of how important she is to the Emperor, do you think we'll see Vader in this?
I want to. I want it to be. I want it to be like one of the last episodes, and I want it to be like utterly terrifying when he shows up.
Be a hallway scene, slaughter them all, grabs Omega,
Yeah,
takes her back. That's how it ends.
I was
No
thinking like the
season
feel.
4.
I was thinking like the feeling you get when you played Fallen Order when Vader shows up,
Yeah.
like that kind of a feeling.
Yeah.
Obviously, I don't think a show can quite get that kind of feeling that the game can, but still.
Yeah. I know I ain't gotta explain it to you, but man, I was terrified when he showed up. And I was running and I was like, ah!
And then like the way it's designed, like you don't want to look back, so you don't know where he is, but it makes you feel like he's right behind you.
Yeah, it is. Oof. Oh boy. And like when you're like sitting there and you're like, oh, I'm losing, I'm gonna die. And it's like, oh, this is just how the game is. Okay, I can breathe a little bit. It's very gets the adrenaline pumping.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh what was I gonna say? I don't know. No. So what I need how the series needs to end is they're being trapped. They're trapped. And then like all of a sudden the lights cut out. And then
The lightsaber, yeah.
and then they're like, ah, and they start firing, yeah, yeah, and he's just block, 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 block. He force pulls over like I don't know, force pulls Wrecker over and grabs him by his neck and just crushes it. And then he um deflects a blaster back at uh, Crosshair and then forces him over and chops him into itty bitty pieces. And then uh finally, Hunter's has Omega backed up and he's standing in front of her and he runs out of his ammunition and he pulls out his knife and he goes to stab Vader and his hand gets caught in midair by the force and then he just gets run through and then he's dead and then he just then Vader comes over and just does the Kylo Ren thing or whatever and Omega just falls asleep and then it's just we cut to black as Omega cuts to black. Talk about getting dark.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say the Bad Batch is dark, but not that well in places, but is dark, but not that
Bad
dark.
Batch isn't a kid's show. It's just a cartoon. It's like The Simpsons or Family Guy.
It's not invincible though. It's not gonna get that.
It's Star Wars. There's no blood. Wrecker's just gonna have a collapsed windpipe. A Crosshair isn't gonna have a head. And hey, Hunter, he's gonna have a little hole in the middle of his chest, people have survived that plenty of times in Star Wars. I mean, everyone but Qui-Gon Jinn.
And Duchess Satine. Everyone forgets about Satine.
Eh. Oh well,
But
she shouldn't have been there.
those are the only two on-screen lightsaber stab wounds resulted in the death of character.
Well, then we need another one. Anyways, we all know that that's not going to happen, but I would love to see Vader in this.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you could even do like somehow Ventress gets into this, right? Which means that we're gonna have someone wielding a lightsaber, which means we're gonna be able to gear up, have someone who could saber against Vader. Try trying to say that 10 times fast.
Uh-huh. Anyway, do you really have anything else to talk about with the Bad Batch?
Uh, I don't know.
I feel like
Ooh, I
oh,
do now.
okay,
So
go for it.
I was gonna do it anyways. Anyways, so you know how when Ahsoka came into Clone Wars, everyone was like, I don't like her that much because she's a whiny brat. I don't know. Nobody really liked her. And then as
Mm-hmm.
her character grew, people started to like her more and more, and then she became a very beloved character. I never felt that with Ahsoka. I guess because I was young enough at the time that I didn't really care that much when she first was introduced. And so I never really disliked the character. I didn't always like the character as much as I do now, but I never really disliked the character. When Omega first came on the scene, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't care for her that much. I was like, "Yay, the Bad Batch! I have to sit through this every week." You know how it's like when you go to work and you're working with that one coworker that you just can't stand, and you're like, that one day that they're off, you're just jumping up and down, and it's the best day ever. But the other 6, 7 days of the week that you're there, you have to deal with them. You know what I'm talking about, David.
The other 7 days of the week.
Yes. Anyways, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're
So
saying.
that's how I felt in season one, really mostly in season one of the Bad Batch when Omega was on. I was just like, man, it's like those days of work where you go in and you see that one person, and you're just like, I can't stand you for whatever reason. I just can't stand you. But I actually kind of like her character now. Like, obviously, I know, understand character growth, character development. She's had a lot of that, and she's grown up a lot. And she is a likable character now. She's had the Ahsoka transformation. I don't know what it is
Mm-hmm.
with Dave Filoni's characters, especially when they're girls, coming in, nobody likes them, and then by the end of it, he figures it out and they're adored. But um I'll like her up until we find out that she's Ray's mom. And then I'll be like, how could you bring this? Well, okay, I have nothing against Ray as a character. Well, I have nothing against Ray. I have a problem with her character. Anyways, we'll deal with that next week. But that's about it. It's just, I mean, I like Omega, and I don't have a problem with this season 3, being the main focal point being Omega. It's probably gonna be very similar to how the main focal point of season 7 of Clone Wars was Ahsoka. We're tying up all her loose ends. We're tying up all Omega's loose ends here, going through all her backstory, talking about who she is, why she's important, what's going on. Like, we need to find those things out, and maybe we will, maybe we won't, maybe they're not important. I don't know. But we're going to be finding out a lot about Omega. She's going to be having a lot of growth. Obviously, we saw in this episode here, while she's grown a lot from the first season, she still trusts too easily. You know, she cares too much in some
Mm-hmm.
sense. You know, and that there needs to be that balance. Crosshair doesn't care enough. She cares too much. Maybe as time goes on, she'll get to the point where she's in that balance. Um, but I don't know. I'm looking forward to the remaining 12 episodes.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know. I think the whole dynamic with Crosshair and Omega is going to be kind of interesting. Having like, because assuming they're probably going to have a few more episodes with the group kind of split up like this,
mhm.
I think that dynamic is going to be kind of interesting because they're
I like
so
the
opposite.
I like the dynamic, and I like how I like I like Crosshair, and it's been cool watching his transformation because you know obviously out the gate, Wrecker, Tech, and Hunter all were like, "This is not right." Go as well. We're all like, "This isn't right." Crosshair was more inclined to follow the orders, and now you're starting to see him come around to the very same realizations that most clones are coming around to, that this is bad and what have I done and all these things. And so I think he's past the feeling guilty and feeling sorry, and now he's just like, the Empire has done this to me. I want to get away. I want to stick it to him. Like I but he's completely against the Empire now. So I've liked seeing that transformation, and as far as his character within the way he interacts with Omega, I am interested to see how that goes.
Which
Um,
talking about Crosshair, like that was one of my favorite episodes of last season. Was that one where he was on
mhm,
the snow planet, where he killed the officer? Why he was
yeah,
in prison.
such a great moment when he just
That was a
shoots
really good episode.
when he just shoots him.
Mm.
Such a great moment. Yeah, it's like when you're watching those shows and the movies or whatever, you just got that one character that okay, you've watched Princess Bride, right?
Of course.
Okay, I figured, but it's also it's a classic, but it's also not automatically the type of movie I think that you would have watched.
No,
To be
of
fair,
course I've seen The Princess Bride.
okay, good. I was just making sure. It might seem like a dumb question, but anyways. So you know how at the end of the book, um, the grandpa's reading it, and the kid's like, "Who gets Humperdinck?" And he's like, "Well, no one." And the kid's so frustrated because nobody gets Humperdinck, right? And that's kind of how some shows and movies we got this villain that you're just like, I need them to die a horrible and gruesome death, and they just don't. But in this episode, they gave us that quote unquote horrible gruesome death because Crosshair is able to end up shooting him.
Mm. Well, it's like when we talked about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3,
Hmm.
and I said the High Evolutionary of any Marvel villain, that he's the one that you just want to
Yeah.
see him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He definitely was one of those. But I feel like I mean, okay, like I said, Princess Bride is a classic. I understand that. It's an amazing movie and it's a classic. But I feel like I'm justified in asking if you'd seen it before just because it's not. I mean, I know it's an action movie, but it's a little bit more of a kissier movie, right? It's got kissing in it.
Is this a
You
kissing
don't
book?
watch that. You don't watch that, David.
Okay, but it's also action movie and a comedy. It's yeah.
Well, I had figured you probably had, but I didn't want to just start explaining it, and then you'd be sitting there like, "Yeah, I've never seen that before." So, But don't
Mhm.
worry, don't worry. Nobody's gonna come at you for not having seen The Princess Bride. So you've seen it. You're good.
Mhm.
We actually just watched that recently. It's still
Yeah, it's
pretty
a good
good.
movie. Yeah, really good
It's a
movie.
great movie. Yeah.
Anyway, do you want to go ahead and jump onto what's new with you?
Yeah, yeah. I'm good to jump into what's new with you.
All right.
What's new? What's new with you? What's new? What's new with you? What's new? What's new with you? Yeah!
Now, mine just finished. How late was it?
It was a little late.
I saw you bobbing your head, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not hearing anything. We're gonna be like 3 minutes into what's new with you, and I'm gonna start getting blasted with it, and I'm gonna be
I
like,
don't
I
know.
can't
I
hear
don't know
you."
why. I don't know why all of a sudden it has started doing that.
You're on crappy Wi-Fi. That's why.
Maybe.
Anyways,
I mean, I'm on my hotspot right now, and I haven't had any problems with Wi-Fi, so I don't know.
yeah, yeah. Hotspots are still hotspots.
True.
David,
Very true.
what is new with you, buddy boy?
That's a good question. I did have something I was going to talk about. Several things I was going to
Good. You
talk
better
about.
think of it. Well, good. I've
Oh,
been waiting for
yeah.
things to talk about.
So it was kind of interesting. It was kind of funny that we brought up um Force Unleashed because I actually did play the first couple levels of Force Unleashed earlier this week.
What'd you play it on? Xbox?
Xbox. Yeah, I got an Xbox. I've got all the classic Star Wars games on Xbox right now, but
You know what? I would love to get them on Xbox. Currently, though, my Xbox is no longer working. I
your
don't know
Xbox is no
why.
longer working.
Yeah, I know. Maybe it's a good excuse for me to get a new one. Um, well, I'm gonna get a new cord because that is definitely not working, and I hope that that's the only problem. We had a bit of a power issue the other week, last week, week before. I don't remember when. And so we're on. For those who don't know, who might just stumble across this, currently we're living on property with my wife Sarah's brother and his family, and then her parents. So our power that we're in our place is connected to the power in her brother's house, and they had some problems. They went and gotten fixed, but apparently some of their stuff shorted out. And so I'm thinking that's what ended up happening with this, which is weird because nothing else. But the TV was plugged into the same outlet, and it didn't have any problems with it. So I don't know. I'm thinking because the Xbox has that little breaker or that little box thing, like that probably took care of the problem. And if I get a new cord, I can get the Xbox working. Currently, I don't have an Xbox. Well, I do, but it doesn't work. I'm gonna go and see about buying a $20 cord to see if that fixes it, so I don't have to buy a $500 Xbox. Well, have to is a strong word, but I'd have to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I did want to talk about too is because I know you had texted me about this. Robert had texted me about this earlier this week as well. But
Mhm.
the original Battlefront and Battlefront 2 are being ported to Switch and PS5.
Yep. And are they okay? So I know that they're putting in like characters and maps and stuff like that. Are they just like
Okay, so I'm pretty sure
updating it with mods for like Xbox, or how's it gonna
I'm
go for
pretty
that?
sure it's the same version that's on Xbox because what's on Xbox, the Xbox One and Series, is your hat of Battlefront 2 at least has the original Xbox DLC because there was
Okay.
DLC for it. It had four maps for that were in the original Battlefront game, and then had two heroes added. Had a side of interest and
Mhm.
Kit Fitzgerald
See,
added into it.
I saw something somewhere where they're asked someone was asking if the DLC was going to be added, and the answer was yes. So I'm it might just be what you're saying, where they're just porting it out to Switch, PlayStation, which would make sense. I have it on some. I have Battlefront 2 on something. I don't know what. It might be Steam. I really don't know what it's on, but I know I have it. I don't play it, but
And
I
you
have
see,
it. It might be on the
see that's
Xbox,
the
but
thing
I
too.
can't check.
See that's the thing too. I already have it on Xbox, and I have both of them on Xbox, and I have the Battlefront 2 on Steam. I don't really need to buy it on Switch, but I'm probably going to buy it on Switch.
Yeah, I really want to get on the Switch because it's just like, why not?
Especially now, I kind of doubt that they're going to, but if by some miraculous like miracle they actually bring back servers for it on Switch, so you can play online, I will
I don't know if they're
100%
doing it
get
on Switch.
Switch.
I don't know if they're doing it on Switch, but I did see something that they are bringing servers back for it. I can
Yeah,
find that post that I sent you.
especially,
That post that I sent you said,
but yeah, especially on Switch.
but
If they bring back servers for it, or in the Xbox too, that would be awesome. Well, if we're doing it online, I think I'd almost rather have it on Switch, just because Switch Online is a lot cheaper than Xbox Live.
yeah. Now, let me see if I can find the original post that I sent you. People post too many posts. Where? Yes! This is all bad. Oh, no, wait. It's the first one. Oh, nope. That is. Oh, wait, no. Okay. We are getting online multiplayer, new maps, and characters after years of asking for it. It'll do. Or, after years of asking for it remastered. It'll do. So, apparently, yeah, we're getting online multiplayer for Battlefront and Battlefront 2, the originals. Per this Instagram post that I see under the account Star Wars parody underscore 501.
Let me see if it's on the eShop yet on Switch. I think it was on Nintendo's website, but I don't know if it's on the eShop yet. Let me see if it is. But yeah. Also, one thing I do want to bring up too. Everything seems Star Wars that I'm talking about now.
Oh, wait, say that again. Cut out.
I said also, well, everything seems to be Star Wars related that I'm talking about, and this technically isn't, but it is. But so Monday at work, I started listening to Dune,
Hmm.
the audiobook for Dune. I am already 80% of the way through it. It's a 21-hour audiobook. I only have 5 hours left. Well, I
Dave, I
guess
think
more
you
like
got a lot
seven
of time to
times.
listen to
But
audiobooks.
so, I mean, yeah.
That's always nice. That's the thing is, like, I like listening to audiobooks. Like when you got time and you can just, if you can be working on one thing but like be listening to something else, it's really nice to have like audiobooks at the disposal to be able to just like listen to. And there's a lot of great ones out there. I mean, like I've I don't have the time that I used to, but when I was able to listen to a bunch of audiobooks, um, I w- I was listening to all kinds of Star Wars novels because I was like, hey, I like stars. I want to expand my knowledge and so I was listening to a bunch of those. But yeah, audiobooks are great. What do you use Apple or do you use something else?
Normally I just find them on YouTube. because I've got YouTube Premium, so I can just like play them and then turn my phone off or turn my phone screen off and play. So
Mm-hmm.
normally I just put them on YouTube and listen there.
Yeah. When a couple weeks ago when we did the about the Queen Palpatine and Mace Windu, I uh I found that in the audio book for the novelization of Revenge of the Sith. I wanted to listen to that. Feel like being one of our credits on the on that,
Mm. Also,
especially when could find it.
oh, you're cutting in and out.
Okay.
But also, one thing I do want to mention too is I pulled up the page for the Battlefront collection on Switch eShop, and it does have the thing that says this software includes online features that require a Nintendo Switch Online membership.
Yep.
So it is going to have online. So that is going to be really cool.
Does it? What's the price? And is it both games combined into
Uh,
one, or are they?
yes, it's both games for right now. You can pre-order it for $31.50, but normal price is $35.
Okay, that's gonna be cool.
Mm.
I don't get on the Xbox much, but I do play the Switch every once in a while. So we'll have to. If you get it, we'll have to.
Why did it just?
I don't know if it's happening for you, but currently I'm
Yeah,
listening to the Listening with You song.
yeah. I don't know what happened, but apparently it just decided that we needed to listen to it again.
Yeah, and it was weird. Is like it
Luckily
blocks
that
out
luckily
so
that
much.
won't be in the recording, so only we
Yeah,
heard it again. But still, that's interesting.
yeah. That's it's always loud. I mean, it's not like when I'm ready for it, it's okay. But when I'm not ready for it, it's a little loud. You know?
Yeah, it just hits you.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I
so
am
Lester,
looking
what's new
forward to
with
that
you?
because let's see.
Or
Uh, seen Battlefront 2. We've already talked about that. Oh, what do I want to say? So I just finished up this past week a 8-week course um for one of my and I am all done. I passed. I did great. And so my first college class is done. So yay.
was it as much fun as you thought it
Anyways,
would be?
that was the most fun class that I had. The rest of the semester is gonna
What
suck.
what class was it?
It was my accounting course.
No.
This is a good thing that I liked it because it's my major, but it's a bad thing because I gotta go the remaining of the semester with English and computer something. They're both dumb.
I'm glad I'm done with English classes. I am so
Yeah.
glad.
Oh, I'm just sending it off to Taylor. I'll write a paper up and then I'll be like, "Hey Taylor, go over this." And then she'll send it back and then I correct everything and then I send it in. And that's about my whole I don't mind
And
writing. I just don't like the grammatical side of it.
mm,
That's the sucky part.
well, it's
So,
easy to write, but yeah,
Well, I was talking to Sarah about that, and she was like talking about when you and I would write, when we'd be writing the scripts, and how like she'd just go back through everything and correct things because we would just go through and like misspell everything. We'd put no punctuation whatsoever and just write it.
Okay, but again, we weren't trying to. Okay,
There was no
if
point.
I'm
There was no
if
point to be
I'm
grammatical.
because it was just like you and I looking at it. But like if I'm writing a paper, I can write a paper and be grammatically correct, have proper sentence structure, spell words correctly, ish. I still need a spell check.
Spell
But
check is a
yeah,
lifesaver.
but yeah, for that, we weren't. No one else was going to look at it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
well, she had to, and she apparently thought that was a chore. So, anyways, but I mean, I'm not the most grammatically correct person. I know that. I don't really care. But I haven't had too many problems. Taylor doesn't tear her hair out every time she reads one of my papers that I know of. She still has her hair, so I would assume that she hasn't left too many
Well,
hairs.
that's good.
But
Yeah.
anyways, so that's out. So that's out of the way. So I think my semester school is going to be boring, but I'm not going to really have to do that much with it. So that's nice. It's going to be
Mhm.
easy too. So, other than that, uh, I have finally gotten back around. I let my anger subside a little bit, and my frustration and my boredom of it, and finally got around to getting back into Ocarina of Time. And I finally got through Jabba Jabba's belly, which was a chore, and I got a little pissed off. I finally got through it. And so now I'm progressed through the story and I've done the time travel thing. So I'm 7 years in the future. And so I got to that point and Sarah was like, it's crazy because you've been playing it for so long, but like you basically just started the game. And I'm sitting over here, I'm like, I got like probably at least double what I just did ahead of me. So that's annoying. Hmm. I still hate the controls. You don't have a free looking camera around. I don't like that.
Mhm. Yeah, no, because it's
I
got the
run into
weird.
that
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
It's annoying.
But
I'm looking
every time,
I'm looking forward to playing Breath of the Wild.
every time I hear someone mention Jab like from that section of Ocarina, I always go back and I always think about that one
Uh-huh.
Captain Sauce video, the 3 random games video, with like the really weird game with the I don't even know how to describe it. It was a really weird game. Uh,
What was the objective?
and there wasn't one.
You'll need to see me. I probably watched it before, but you'll need to find it and send it to me so I can understand what you're saying.
Okay, but because Cap makes a reference to Jabba Jabba's belly, because like you go inside this like really creepy giant guy. I know that sounds weird, and it is. But I'll send you
All
that
I can
video
think of
later
is
if I can find it.
all I can think of is when he was playing through Cuphead because he goes inside the giant or something like that.
No, it's not that.
One of
But
them. I don't know.
yeah. But yeah, he
Well, I
mentions
figured
Jab.
you'd know what Cuphead would be, but
Well, yeah, but he mentions Jabu Jabu's belly in this 3 random games video. That's why I think of that every time, and I think of that every time I hear Jabu Jabu's belly.
when I was going through it and still trying to figure out what I was supposed to be doing, I asked Sarah, I was like, when I figure out what I'm doing, am I going to be like, man, I feel really stupid? And she was like, yeah. It's like once you figure it out, it's like it's pretty simple, but the figuring out is the hard part. And I was like, man, I hate that because I'm gonna be sitting here and then finally I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna be like, how did I not get this sooner? And I did. That's exactly how I felt. I was it wasn't even complicated. I just didn't know that that's where I needed to go. That's the one thing that I really don't like about this game. I understand that's part of it that's supposed to make it more challenging. But the way that I see it is if I don't necessarily know what I'm supposed to be doing, then I'm not figuring things out. I'm stumbling across the right answer, which means that I'm not solving a problem. I'm just accidentally
Stumbling into
getting it right.
success.
I'm stumbling into success. And that doesn't like, okay, in, I really, really liked um, Jedi Fallen Order. Jedi Fallen Order is a very similarly structured game to Ocarina and Zelda games in general. Uh, but they're obviously because it's a puzzle type game, right? So you have to go and you have to solve the puzzles and figure things out. When you're doing those, whenever I got to the point where I figured out the puzzle, I felt so like I felt so good. I was like, "Hey, I'm smart. I figured this out." Yada yada yada, right? I don't feel that way when I figure out most of the puzzles in Ocarina because I'm just like, I didn't know what I like, I don't even know what I was doing. I just stumbled across success. It's a little annoying. I'm getting through the game, but, apparently that's a common thing with Ocarina, that it's a lot of that. But,
Mhm.
I asked Sarah I'm glad that she's played through the game, before, so I have helpful hints, but I just got out of the Temple of Time, and Navi was like, "Hey, go to this place first." And that was all she said. She said, "Go to this location." I had no idea what I was supposed to do when I got there, and nothing really helpful. Like no one was ever really helpful with like pointing out where I was supposed to go or what I was supposed to do. And so I asked Sarah, and she told me like a general idea of what I was supposed to go do. And I was like, nothing has pointed me into that direction. Like this whole entire time. Like I was just wandering around trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. This game is a little Sarah's trying to talk in the background, but that's this game is a little annoying.
Mhm.
But I'm trying to get through it. I'm trying to get through it. So she doesn't like that I talk bad about her favorite game,
Mhm. I'm just trying
but
to
I have
find
to.
that video that I was talking about, and it's annoying that I can't find it.
He doesn't have that many 3 random games, does he?
Well, I'm looking through his playlist of them. He might not have added it to that playlist, but
Um,
it should be on
how
here.
old of a how old of a video was it? Like, was
It's
it
not
really
that
old
old.
or
It's not that old, no.
okay,
Oh,
okay.
hold up.
Yes, gotta
Sarah just texted me and said that
oh,
it told him where to go in the dialogue that he didn't read.
that's not true. I would have known if it was told to me. It was never told to me. It's not my fault if I didn't read it.
I mean, it kind of is, but whatever.
David, shut up. Nobody cares about your opinion.
Who said I have an opinion?
I don't know. I don't really know what else to say, David. I think I'm good. I don't think I have any more
Well,
thoughts in my
I
brain.
mean, I'm recording for an hour and a half, so yeah, probably about time to end it.
I don't think that I have any more thoughts up here. Not that I had that many to begin with, but I can usually pull something out when it's Star Wars related. But I think I'm out of anything that's new with me. We actually had something. Excuse me. We actually had something to talk about this week though, because it's been such a long time since we recorded last.
Yeah, and then come next week, we're not going to have anything to talk about because we're probably going to record Monday or Tuesday. So,
I'll make sure to play some Ocarina between now
okay.
and then.
Okay.
Give us something to talk about.
Anyway, we should probably go ahead and head on to an outro.
Works for me.
Well, explorers, that's about all the time we have for today.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
Let us know what you thought in the comments down below, or you can DM us on Instagram at DownThereAfterYT.
And with that, be sure as always to join us next week on the Trailcast.